So it's a learning live. So we haven't actually done one of these before, but ultimately I felt like we could use the lessons as the basis of learning live. But then also what happened last week, as you said, Sue, we kind of talked about some really cool stuff. So out of the Q&A, I think can come some focus bits for us to dig deeper into. Because for me, learning live is about us having a session where we just dig deep, because I think that's really important. And it's a subject that I chose out of the back of what we talked about in Q&A. Georgina, the recording is up now in Knowledge Hub. But one of the things that came up was the social media platforms. And actually, you know, they're changing. We're getting tired. We've got fatigue around these platforms. But ultimately, they've always been a little bit of a bread and butter for visibility, for us being able to show up and connect. And so I think what I probably want to explore tonight is not that we quit all of them, but that we really start to think about how we get the best out of them. And actually, what else starts to come into play? Because we talk about social media platforms, but actually, we're now meeting again. Hurrah. You know, we're meeting face to face again. We're being able to go to events again. It's interesting how those dynamics could now kick in more into that visibility space, whereas like for a couple of years we had to just ditch that stuff, didn't we? So I guess that's me positioning the conversation, and I've got some thoughts, but they're very much thoughts about me and my business, because ultimately I'm one of you too, and your businesses are different to mine. And you're also at different stages in your business. So, hi, Sue. I must say hello to you because I didn't say hello when you came in. But, you know, I know your situation's different, where now you're slowing down a little bit more, you know, but you're still doing your events, and you're also doing crafting, which is another aspect of business that Alison and Georgina, we don't do that. But Alison, you have a product, a physical, tangible product. Georgina and I don't. So we're all quite different here in the mix. So I've talked a lot to try and position it, but I suppose I want to start exploring, you know, what is it now that what are your thoughts about what happens with these wonderful platforms that we've enjoyed for a few years to have the exposure and visibility that we have? So it's really an open forum, but with us learning from each other.
Mine has always just been a very light touch on social media, and very much more for the visibility, and sort of looking at sort of values and sharing a little bit about what I do. So the ripples, but I'm very much a people person. And I did my first live event, outdoor live event on Sunday, which was the first one since pre-COVID, because during COVID, people didn't want to try or test products without everything being sanitized, and you just can't do that on, you know, when you're tasting and trying on creams and trying your drinks. So it was really interesting, and I absolutely loved it. I had that much positivity from the people I met, you know, because sometimes you can go to, you know, an event and you can spend 4 hours, at least 2 hours preparing it, you know, and you sell an aloe lips if you're lucky, you know.
Tell me about it.
This time, you know that feeling, Sue. But this time people were listening, they were responsive, they were buying. And it was just absolutely lovely. And also on the breakfast side of things, so I still got my breakfast meeting every Thursday, which there's usually about sort of 35 to 40 people in the room there, which again has always, you know, done me very, very well for referrals. But I've also this week got been asked to be a sub in BNI groups. Okay, which I don't go to on a regular basis because of the way in which they're structured, and I don't want to do too many meetings. But again, it's that opportunity. People are saying, will you go? So I've got one tomorrow morning, and I've got one on the beginning of December. So it's very much now my actual visibility is in person. And the social media is just, you know, sort of bumbling along below that, just supporting, I suppose. So if people sort of meet me in person, they can also see me, you know, oh, what else is she doing, sort of thing. And it's that sort of area. That's where I am anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the fact you're out and about again and you're meeting people. It's very you, Alison, and it's where you're best, I'm sure. I've only met you once. It needs to be more often, I think. But I can see that and how it works, especially with your product range. What's lovely is to hear that people are starting to relax a bit now as well
Yes.
when we meet. That's really good to hear, because we have to get back to some sort of normality after everything we went through. So that's really positive. And I guess my question to you then is, will you maintain the social media on the platforms you're on no matter what? Or are you watching to see how they're changing, to see whether you're going to make changes?
I will always watch what the changes are. I'm normally reactive, all right, not proactive on those, because I've no idea what they're up to, you know, and I think, oh, they're doing that now, are they? Well, there you go. I don't intend on exploring any more social media platforms. So it's Facebook. I've got my business page, my team page. So I put a post there, my personal page. So Facebook, there's 3. And then it's LinkedIn. And I haven't really got the time or the inclination to look at lots of others. And I know you should be where your customers are. But for me, it's not necessarily for customers. It's all really just about spreading the message and, say, raising the visibility. Yeah. And, you know, my customers are in person. So I'll stick with what I've got. Maybe if I'm brave enough, I'll maybe use and explore YouTube next year. You know, I keep meaning to and haven't yet. But that's probably about the only other one that I will, you know, be prepared to sort of, at the moment. That's where I'm thinking at the moment. That's the strategy I'm developing for next year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I want to talk about YouTube as well. So I'm glad you brought it up, but we'll come back to that. Sue, I know obviously your situation is slightly different. You've talked to me about slowing down and et cetera, but also there's the awareness around the charity. So I'm curious as to whether actually that's what's going to be where you carry on visibility rather than actually what you make, if that makes sense.
I'm on, like Alison, I've got a couple of Facebooks, the Granny Maud one and my own. Those two, or the Granny Maud one certainly is linked into Instagram. So anything that goes on Facebook immediately goes on Instagram, so that, you know, that I don't have to do anything really with that.
Which is good, yeah.
And then we've got Shopify, which is going to continue to go for a while. And we see if anything comes out of it, because there's the shop on Facebook in Granny Maud, and, you know, I keep linking everything to the shop. And I've been trying to get more things out on there and sort of saying, but every time it says, you know, AHC awareness, we were talking about hashtags the other night.
Yeah, we were.
So I'm trying to remember to put the hashtags in where it's relevant. But having said all that, I had the best craft fair I have ever had on Saturday. It was only a small one in a village. There are only we had 7 stalls in the end. It will only take 8, this particular room. It's the only room I can get in that village. And the people coming in has grown during the year. But the reason that's one of the reasons we're not going to do it anymore, because the tables in there are so heavy. They're a silly size. You know, and it's Tony and me putting it all out. You know, I'm putting them all back in again in the cupboard at the end of the day, sort of thing. It's that sort of thing that gets us.
Yeah.
But set aside from, if you've seen my Facebook page, this 100-year-old quilt that I finished off repairing, and she was tickled pink with it. Well, that was. I said, I'll try and keep it under the £100. And, you know, thanks to Hobbycraft, where I got the binding from, it turned out I picked up, you know how the material's on a bolt, and I picked the last on a bolt. When she came to measure me a meter out, there was 2 pieces. There wasn't a meter, there was just 2 pieces. And she measured, she said, it's just over a meter, but she said, we'll let you have it for half price. And I said, well, you know, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I said, in actual fact, I'm cutting it into strips, so it's not going to matter anyway. But they let me have it for half price. So the cost of the quilt, of the quilting and the binding, just came to £99.50.
That's That's crazy, isn't
So
it?
she paid me £100. She said, "No, I don't want the 50 back," and she was tickled pink with it. But aside from that, I had the best day of takings, mainly all with smallish things. I don't think there was nothing over 16, £17.
Yeah.
And
Was
it
there
seemed,
more people then? Did more people buy,
yeah,
Sue?
yeah, but you see, on the other hand, Tony, who usually takes more than me, only had 2 sales. You know,
Isn't that
you just
interesting?
can't work it out.
Well,
Craft
hang
fairs
on
are
a
weird.
minute. Hang on. I've just had a thought.
What's that?
Is it a bit of hygge at work?
Could be.
I mean,
Yeah. And there were 1 or 2 others who did really well, and some who did nothing. You know, you can't work it out. Of
no,
7
it's
people
hard
in a
to
room.
say. Yeah,
7
it's
people
hard
in a
to
room.
say, Sue. I think what's interesting, I've written a blog actually about this. I'm not sure when it's going to be published because Shelley Wilson, bless her, she publishes my blogs for me. But we've done 2. And one of them was about people are still buying. And I know I keep banging on about this, and everybody's going to hate me. And I haven't had a chance to look at what was said today, everybody. So don't slate me, because they released the statement today, didn't they? I haven't had a chance to see what it all said. But what I do believe is that we will still buy, and we will make our decisions what we buy, and we might cut back on certain things. But I do think we will still buy, and we still do treat ourselves, and we will still meet and buy coffee and cake. You know, it's like Shelley said, I went to the cafe, and like it's full of people, and each of those people are probably spending a tenner each on cake and coffee. So maybe there's some of that, Sue, where people are saying, actually, sod it, I'm gonna go and buy something, but equally I'm gonna feed the small business market, and support them.
The other thing is that we've got a sum up machine, so we can take card payments. Most stallholders have them nowadays.
I have them, yeah.
But even the £100 was cash. There was very little of what I took, surprisingly enough, was on card on Saturday.
Well, that's interesting too.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
So but as for sales feeding through from Facebook and Instagram, the answer is still no, but I'm hoping it will build up, so we shall have to see.
Yeah, so you'll stick with it by the sounds of it, Sue, and just see where it goes.
Just to see where it goes. And
I'm not saying that they're dead, because they're not dead, but I do feel like they've changed an awful lot, and I feel like the vibe's different, and I feel like people, as Rona said last week in the QA, there's this fatigue around it all, isn't there? That's the thing. But if we are going to have a look and say, well, actually, what else can I do, or what else could I explore, whether you decide you want to or not, I think for this forum, for anyone maybe watching the replay, it would be quite good for them to go away with some other ideas of other things they could think about doing. Georgina, what have you got to put in the mix? Because obviously you're coming from a place of knowledge with this, because you're IT head on. You're probably going to have a lot more insight into the whole social media platforms piece. Tell us what your thoughts are.
I think there's so much to this, really, and I think it's individual to the business, and I think that is where it's key, and also who's in the business, as in
manpower.
Yeah, well, exactly, and also how they feel about it, because I do think that still transfers digitally on if you're wanting to do something, if you're keen to do something, or if it's a chore, and then it will come across as a bore.
Yeah, it's a great point.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
It really is. But it's also, and Sue brought up a really interesting thing. It's really hard to find patterns at the moment, because everything has kind of changed with obviously COVID, and it's like pre-COVID we could kind of guess certain things, and now it's like new territory. Well, we can try certain things again. So there's a lot of events, in-person events starting again, which is great for me, because then I can have those one-to-one conversations, which you can go into a little bit more depth that a post or even a video can't do. So, and true networking can sort of happen, but you still need to sort of let people know that you're still about. So there's that consistency. So it's this hybrid world that we're in, but also how you want to run your business, because it is as unique as your business.
Yeah, it's so true.
You know, I've done this for quite a while. You've got to be careful about comparison as well. Some people will do a lot of things and you're like, right, okay, maybe I should be doing
I better do them
well. And don't get me wrong, if you want to genuinely try it, it's try one thing at a time. And I mean, I love trying new things and stuff for a little while, but you've got to see if that's going to work for you and if you can do it on a longer term, because you don't want to sort of come in as sort of you're there, you're not, and that type.
Yeah, because the consistency has also got to be there too, hasn't it? So we've always talked about this visibility having a consistency, a relevance. So actually, whatever you say or do should be relevant to your audience, and a regularity. But the thing is, it's very true what you say. Your regularity could be once a week. That's okay, you know.
Yeah, but also I think this is where people underestimate how social media works. It's not necessarily just posting, because it's the comments you make to other people's posts.
It's interaction, isn't it?
It's the interactions, and because you don't see how that sort of gets to the other networks, and that's really the key. So even if you are not necessarily wanting to put great volumes of content out yourself, that regular interaction, somebody's made a comment and you can sort of
comment back
to etc. But also you have your own preferences. I mean, we'll go on to Twitter and Elon Musk as well, and it is going to change slightly as in how that's working. But I do love Twitter for a lot of the audience that are on there. I mean, obviously they're not everybody, but there is a lot of developers on there, and you can get a lot of information, a lot of conversations from that side. So it really is a case of so unique, and I think that's where it's, if you feel like, well, wait a minute, I'd like to give this a go, but don't try and do it all at once. And I think that's the thing, because otherwise you just burn out and you go, oh, none of this is for me.
It's overwhelming as well, isn't it, trying to do it all?
We have somebody who runs I forgot Twitter. I think I mentioned it the other night. You
mentioned it last week, so didn't you?
Yeah, somebody who runs one which is called Links
Twitter
Connect,
Hour,
and it's for all Lincolnshire businesses. That just happens on a Monday. He does there's Links Art and Craft on a Monday lunchtime. There's a general get together on Monday night, and there's Links Jobs and there's all sorts of things, but it happens on a Monday, so you can pick up all sorts of chats and one thing and another. And but I think sharing is a good way. If people share your page, if you've that helps to spread the message as well.
There's so, as you say, Georgina, this is incredibly complex when you want to drill it down. I think you're absolutely right about, depends what your business is, depends how comfortable. I love that point about what you're comfortable doing. There's so many coaches out there will say, you've got to go and do this, you've got to go and make video, you've got to go on TikTok, and then you go, oh my God, I don't want to do that. Sorry to say God, so that wasn't, but it's like, I don't want to do that, but somebody's saying I have to do it. And as you say, everybody can then see that you really didn't want to do it. So I think what's really interesting is one of the things that, if I just share like a couple of things with my business now, one of the things that I've found is that I don't go on LinkedIn all the time like I used to. I would post 5 days a week on LinkedIn quite religiously. I built up a huge network of people on LinkedIn, and predominantly American people, which is wonderful, because for me, I can do business anywhere in the world, which is my advantage with the coaching. So I don't have a physical product I need to drop into their addresses, only my book, but they can usually get that on Amazon and stuff. So I had this advantage where, so what social media gave me was the reach, this global reach, you know, and connection to people I would never have met in real life. And I still think there's an element of my business where that's really important. But what's happened to me more so is I've now got Sam coming into the business 1 day a week. He's moved from working for his dad. He's coming in to work with me, which is brilliant. And I said to him, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with my social media? Where do you want to take what I teach? He's read my book now. Yeah, at last. But he's read my book. He knows my methodology. He said, I think you can help young people, Mum. I've never explored a young audience in my life, because I've always connected with people who are more my age, maybe even older. Naturally, Facebook brought me an audience which was much along my values and age range. And that's what I've stuck to. And it's been brilliant. And all of a sudden now, Sam's saying, you could really help these young guys. So I'm thinking, right, well, where do I reach them? How do I speak to them? Because they're very different to me. And what do we do? So he set up a Discord server. So I now have a Discord server. Now you guys you may never have heard of it. So, but it's ultimately for younger age group, really from, I don't know, teenagers, probably, Georgina, up to say 40s. They're the guys who hang out. They're usually gamers. So they're very into the online gaming kind of world. And 32% of them are in the US. So all of a sudden, I've got this brand new audience. Sam set it all up, so I didn't have to worry about any of the tech. And I've now got 30 members in this free Discord group who were all joining to learn about sales. So listen, it's not for everyone, but I think what I want to try and demonstrate is that there's another world out there, which if you've got someone who wants to support and help you be visible in it, who knows what might happen. We can also attach a payment wall to that Discord space through Mighty Networks, funnily enough, which is where we're all on our membership. And we could put it in $1 price, have it at quite a low level with literally just a really small input of content for them. And they could then start paying to be part of that group. So again, another revenue stream. And it's the main reason why suddenly now I've set up a TikTok, because I would probably not have explored that, but those guys will probably come and follow me on TikTok. So you see how that's all evolved just because Sam's joined. And the beauty of it for me is I'm comfortable doing a TikTok. I might look silly, but I'm quite happy to jump in and do it. And so I'm comfortable to explore those new avenues. But it has to be 100% has to be that you're comfortable doing it, because otherwise I would say, no, don't do it, because it's going to be worse to do that. And the other thing I just want to mention is this whole hybrid world, because what I truly think is that we're going to come full circle again, because let's face it, don't we always do this? Because what we're realizing is we quite like meeting people. We quite like being in real life with people. And now we can again. I'm really curious as to how much that's going to start forming part of our visibility, much more than perhaps it ever did. Speaking is coming back in a massive way, attending conferences, going to network meetings, Alison, going to events like yours, Sue, and all sorts of other events are starting to kick up everywhere, Georgina. I truly think we're going to be in much more of a hybrid world. And I think we need to think that way. And we might not reach a global audience when we're face to face, but we've always got a local audience. We just have. And
the local audience, I think, is more likely to come back.
I agree, Sue, because there's definitely this community spirit with localized things. And there's this feeling which I think is still out there, where we want to support local business. I
Mm.
still think that's there.
See the
So-
But
lady.
also the local businesses. Sorry, so
I was just going to say the lady in her quilt. You know, she said she trusted me. She kept saying, "I trusted you." I'd never met her before, but she said, "I
Mhm.
felt I trusted you, seeing what work you'd done. You know, actually seeing the work on the stand. She trusted me to do that work."
Yeah, yeah.
And she
Mm.
was tickled pink with it when she got it back.
Yeah.
It's great. What were
And,
you going
and
to
the
say,
reason, one of the
Alison?
reasons one of the reasons she trusted you, Sue, is because the work you'd seen and that visibility and that consistency.
Yeah.
So
In real life,
that's
yeah.
what brought that. But what I was saying is that those local people will share what they've done with you in events.
Mm.
So it will
Yes.
go onto their social media, all right. And that's, you know, and particularly sort of things that you make that become family heirlooms. So
Mm.
people will post about those, and those that are interested will be curious, where did you get that?
Mm,
Yeah.
The strength of somebody else referring you can't be underestimated.
No.
No.
I had a new customer today for exactly that. All right, literally. I'd given a heat lotion to the girl who sits next to me in the art class. She said, "It's his magic. You told me it was." She passed that. She bought 2 more tubes. She passed one on to Sue. Sue phoned me today and said, "Can I have one?" Well, unfortunately not, because they're stopping it in Europe. But I know I could have sold. I sold all 7 on Sunday. But I gave her 4 options, and I met up with her in Lloyd's, and she's trying another product, and we still had that conversation. I hadn't met her before. That was purely a referral, because
No.
somebody else trusted, she's prepared to try something else.
I think there's a great point here about referrals. Never underestimate the trail you leave behind you.
No.
Remember the
certainly.
Maya,
Yeah.
oh, I never remember her name, not this late at night. What's her name? Maya
Angelou.
Angelou, thank you, Alison.
Yeah.
Her saying is always prevalent, isn't it?
Yes, never forget how you make people feel.
Never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's so important. And there's 2 examples from my camp in the last couple of weeks. The guy I sat next to at a golf day, I might have shared this last week, I can't remember. I sat next to him at a golf day, the nicest man. He was absolutely lovely. I could have taken him home with me in the nicest way, not in a horrible bad way. But I just chatted with him like I'd known him for years. And he'd started his business 40 years ago from his back room. And he now had a multi-million-pound business, which had survived COVID. And they fit commercial kitchens, basically. That's their business. And I got a call 3 weeks ago to quote for some sales training, some individual sales coaching, and some customer service presentations, because of sitting next to this guy at a golf day. Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing I got today was somebody booked a virtual cuppa, and I was looking at, I thought I recognized the domain, the email address. And it was a company that I knew the CEO from, but he had trained me in NLP, 12 years ago, probably. This guy, and it was his branding and marketing guy wants to chat to me about how sales fits into their business going forward. And that's years ago. And I'm like, well, I don't think he's found me by accident, because we're connected because of Graham and Ian and everything that I did. So this is the thing, isn't it? This is the ripple effect of visibility and consistency, and never, ever leaving a bad trail behind you. It's so important,
And can I also just say, when you sort of have left that trail, sometimes it's nice to just check back in, not to get more work, but just as in that follow-up, because it is that relationship can still building, isn't it?
Yeah.
So something recently that I was sort of toying with, because it came up as a charity that they're still collecting certain stamps, and they give obviously money to charity, and I thought they'd stop that. And we were sort of saying, how much do you get in the post that's not just the leaflets and the churn, that are genuine, sort of handwritten or with the stamp to sort of and I think that's kind of unique sometimes, and it's these unique bits that stand out, that really sort of make how you make them feel. So back onto that, they may forget, you know, all the details, but they might remember your name, what you do, and how you made them feel. And that's exactly what you want to leave them with.
So there's a guy on LinkedIn, I don't know if you're connected with, Angus Grady. Anyone connected to Angus?
Yeah.
Alison, yeah.
I think I was, but I don't do LinkedIn anymore. So.
Oh yeah, so you might have been, because he came and did a session in the membership soon.
Yeah, that's
about
perhaps around
LinkedIn.
now.
He's so fun. This guy is, if you really dig into his story, he's a bit Marmite for some people because he says what he thinks. But actually, if you dig into his story, he's very interesting because he was an alcoholic, which of course he'll tell you he still is, but obviously he's recovering. And he hasn't, I think he hasn't drunk for 14 years, maybe longer. He did an amazing podcast. I'll try and remember to post the link in. You'd love listening to this podcast because it's super. It's very real and very raw. But Angus is such a great character, and his whole old school philosophy is about speaking to people. Hello, here's a phone. But equally, he does these postcards. And so he will actually send out postcards to people, which he handwrites, which go in the post and land on your mat. And you suddenly go, oh, I've got some post. How unique is that? And it's not a brown envelope from HMRC. And this, he says, is really having impact because it's different. It's very old school. I mean, in the old days, that's all we ever did was send direct mail, but people don't do that anymore. So, you know, isn't this interesting when you think about all of these elements where maybe all we've done is said, oh, we need to be on social media. But actually, beyond that, there's this much bigger world of lots of other luscious things that we can be doing. And like you say, Georgina, not doing everything because that's overwhelming, but maybe saying, guess what? Do you know what? For the first 2 months of 2023, I'm going to send out some postcards. And here's what I'm going to say, you know, and maybe that's the way you do it, is you just do little chunks and then you test and see what happened and what you got back, you know. It's all about simplicity, I think, as well, you know, keeping it simple. Most of us work solo.
And manageable, and
manageable,
just making
Alison.
it manageable,
because most of us do work solo, and even if we're lucky to have a little Sam doing a day a week, it's lovely.
It's not so little.
I know he's not anymore. I can't call him that anymore, can I, Sue? And he's driving as
you can always call him that.
It'll always be my little boy. But even like having him once a week with me, it still means that actually I don't have a massive impact on my manpower, really. You know, it allows me to do a few new things, but not, you know, I can't rule the world with just one little part-time person and me. So yeah, it's really interesting looking at the different things that you can do. Let's just quickly talk about YouTube. Because I'd like to do that, because I have banged the drum for YouTube for a long time. I am as guilty as anyone that I don't do enough regularly on there. But what I've always tried to do is repurpose on there. So if I record a podcast, which I do record on Zoom, I put it out as audio podcast wise, but then I'll also publish it as a visual video on YouTube. I'll do a walking the dog vlog now and again on my phone, you know, so it's not necessarily regular as much as it's consistent with the messaging, but I don't do it regularly enough, really. And the other thing they've now got is shorts. And shorts is very much like reels on Instagram, TikToks. If you think about these short, sharp, 1 minute to 3 minute, I don't know how long the shorts last, Georgina, you might know better than me. But the fact is, if you're making something for you for TikTok, for instance, I don't see why you can't then publish it on YouTube. You know, I'm about repurposing, as you know. So some thoughts around YouTube for you, I think, is to just think about stuff like that. Georgina, you're going to add in some stuff.
Well, YouTube is obviously owned by Google.
Yeah.
My feeling on this is, if you've got a evergreen piece of content that is that people look for you and they find your video as long as you've got in your YouTube, obviously details, how to then go to your website or go to your other areas, it could be that you get it's seen far
Rich.
easier up on the first page because of YouTube.
Yeah.
So therefore, sometimes I don't think it's always about having a complete separate audience on YouTube. It's using Google's search engine optimizer to do it for, and this is where it's really being very clear on the strategy of why you're using something, because it will make a complete difference of whether you're posting once a week, whether you're doing a short, whether you're doing a video, because if you're using it for search engine, then those descriptions and the thumbnails become even more sort of important.
There, yeah, that's a good point.
In that. I mean, just on that, because the thing is, there are other video platforms that are out there, and again, it's not to say that obviously YouTube hasn't got a great audience in it, but I mean, coming back full circle on all of this, if there's a lot of noise, and there is a lot of noise on social media, sometimes it's about finding where it's quieter that you can stand out, especially as a smaller company. And I think that's where you can make maybe more impact. And so, and not necessarily for everybody, but even like yourself, Jules, is there's Twitch. I don't know whether people have heard of Twitch.
Yeah, I've heard of Twitch.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of gamers are. But what people don't know is there's a lot of coaches that are starting to use it, and because it's this live. But the real big thing that YouTube are starting to do, etc., but it's this payment facility that can trickle in another income source for influencers and for coaches.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. It's really being clear why you're wanting to do it, and not just because somebody else is there, or not
exactly
because it might not suit your purpose.
Well, no, and just to touch on Twitch is about live streaming. So basically you go live on Twitch with a purpose, as Georgina quite rightly says. And the reason why gamers love it is because they'll watch Twitchers. I'm not sure if they're called that, but I like calling them that. They'll watch these guys or girls on Twitch playing the games they love. And they'll sit and watch them for a long time playing these games. But then what they do is they can tip them. They'll tip them money because they're giving out their tips of how to play the game better. And they can literally pay online. And it's small amounts. It's really small amounts as far as I know, Georgina. But basically, when you think about the fact you've got a good audience on Twitch and you're playing a game and showing them all the tips and tricks, then suddenly they're all tipping you. That's a revenue stream right there. And how coaches are going to use it will be super interesting, because I'm guessing they're going to run a webinar type session on there where they perhaps cover one subject. I don't know, Georgina.
So, I mean, this is a whole art in itself. I mean, I can talk to people if they want to sort of know a bit more, but it's getting there's this sort of EA Sports. I don't know whether you know, it's this sort of digital sports. So you're watching sports, but then you're also being part of it. And I say sports, it's not necessarily just football, it's digital games, and it really is going, it's a massive industry that is actually growing so big for young people as well. So it depends on your audience. But as somebody a bit older, I kind of look at it Big Brother, that you're kind of watching somebody, you're a fly on the wall, and they can make it quite entertaining, really. And so even if, and they've got these wonderful sort of digital backgrounds that they have, and games that you can play along with them, and prizes that they give out. I mean, it is full on sort of like TV production quality, some of them. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. But it's again, if it's not something that you necessarily want to sort of say, right, okay, I'm going to do that as well as this.
Yeah.
it's a completely different
It
strategy
is.
as
It
well.
is. It is.
And I mean, even looking at Zoom that we use, you can record on Zoom, then you can obviously put on Google, but you can also live stream. So again, it's knowing the different platforms and how they prioritize and really favor certain
Your content.
material, certain content.
Mm.
And once you know that, it's the bit of that knowing, then you can make that decision whether or not you want to do that as well. So it's kind of half knowing it can do it, and then obviously seeing if it's something that you want to do.
Yeah, and this is all about understanding the options that are out there, but also understanding what you want as a business and what you're prepared to do that's comfortable for you. It's all these lovely things we've touched on add to the mix of this being a great session, because there's lots of things for you to think about. And what's really interesting when I looked at TikTok was that TikTok's been around a while. There was a big craze for it, then everybody went off it, then it didn't like it much. It's coming back now, and it's full of people like me, and coaches and businesses have really picked up on TikTok, and they never really took to it much at the beginning, and now
It's
they're
all
back.
little kids dancing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not it is still that too, Sue, but it's much more business focused. And what's super interesting is I googled, I searched on TikTok for hashtag sales, and I got a stream of TikTokers who were talking about sales. How many women was in my stream of TikTok salespeople? How many women? I had a whole page. I might have had, I don't know, 20 videos served me on my first page. One woman. The rest of them were American men. And one Englishman who was very monotone and extremely boring. Bless him, I'm sure he's a lovely man. But the point is, when I look then, this guy's got 34,000 followers. So all of a sudden, he's got this huge audience. Now, okay, they might not all be listening, but when you look at how many views his TikToks are getting, he's getting a lot of views. And it's because of how he's structuring his short messages about how to, and to what to avoid, how to, it's all that stuff. And he's flying, and they're all flying, doing that sort of stuff. And that's only in my little genre of sales. But you imagine if you then searched, what you guys do. I'm not saying you will go on TikTok, but I'm saying when you decide where you do want to go, this is the sort of stuff you can start looking at and seeing what else is out there.
Can I just check back? Sorry, hang on. So
the one that I don't understand is that it's connected to Facebook, isn't it? You get these just little pictures, and by the time you've read or looked at them, it's disappeared. You can't do anything with it. You have to sort of flick through it and find what are they called?
The Facebook stories.
The stories, that's those, yeah. And there just seemed to be a sheer waste of time to me, because, as I say, you don't even have time to reply. It's gone before you've read what they've...
The idea of those, Sue, is for nosy people. I should say curious, because that's not fair. But literally, it's a really quick way to see what's going on in somebody's life, because it literally is in the moment, little spot check on. And I confess I do actually watch stories. I am a bit, because they're quick to watch, and I'm also quite nosy. What were you going to say, Alison, about...
No, I'm just going back to what Georgina was saying about YouTube and Google. So if I've understood you correctly, then you really need to be aware. So like in Google My Business, all right, or whatever. So if I've got a post there, all right, then that's going to be useful. Or if I do a YouTube video, I need to just make sure that somewhere I've got Google My Business reference, my website reference, and that, so that people can then find me and Google like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, when you set up your YouTube channel, obviously you put in all your details of how to find you, and obviously you get sort of all your criteria there. So fill that in, and it is so that when somebody looks at your video, they may know nothing about you, but you've put into that video certain things like a hashtag or something that is at the top. They've liked your thumbnail because it's relates to them or resonates with them, and then it's a case of then they can drill further once they've done that. But it's
Right.
that, you know, it's not necessarily for them to watch the content, and that's the other side of YouTube, that they have put into their, you know, Google search engine a particular phrase or keyword or a hashtag, and Google, of course, are going to
serve you
favor
YouTube.
their own platforms.
Yeah, which is the benefit of it.
It-
There is one thing
Right.
to note, Alison, and it might be, I don't think it's massively outdated, but at the very beginning of the membership, there was a lovely lady called Clarice Lynn,
Okay.
and she came in and did a YouTube session. And I'm pretty sure I've put it into the new membership, but I'll check and make sure it's in there.
Okay.
And she does a really good little session about how to set it up and the really important things to put, very simple, the important things to put in so that you connect back to what Georgina's saying about this Google search thing. She talks about hashtags, she talks about thumbnails, she talks about, you know, how to set up your account, the important things that you should fill in and things like that. So I'll make sure it's in there, but that might be worth a little watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got one, but I can't remember setting
Yeah.
it up. I'm sure somebody helped me, and it was, yeah, I need to
Yeah.
go back and just, you know, make sure that that's set up, because if I am going to use that next year, you know, as part of my strategy, then it needs,
Yeah.
the basics need, the foundations need to be there, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, you just touched earlier, Georgina, on being in the quieter places. I think if you're going to do that, you've got to then be in the know. And equally, so that's where our lovely Georgina comes in, but equally look at actually you've almost got to be an early adopter type mindset. And Mighty Networks, let me tell you, is an early adoption type of platform, because what they're trying to do is push people out of Facebook onto here. Because what they have is they have a free network, just like Facebook. So they actually want you to come onto Mighty Networks. But when you look at it, the last time I looked, there was only 55,000 users, which is a lot of users, but it shows you how young it is and how it's continuing to develop all the things that they're doing. So you've got lots of little platforms that will also be new places. Look at Clubhouse. Look at Clubhouse and how everybody ran to be on Clubhouse, which is still there, and there are still avid people who are going on to Clubhouse, and it's developed, but there's an awful lot of people got fed up with it and they went on it and then they got bored. And then LinkedIn now do an audio platform, and Discord, funnily enough, do an audio platform, which they call
How
The
do you
Stage.
find out about LinkedIn's audio platform? Where would I find that?
Well, we need to actually, Georgina might know, but we need to find out how you find audio events, because they've only just brought it out of beta. I'm pretty sure they have now finally brought it out of beta, because they tested it for a long time, Alison, up to recently. And one of the big problems we had was, how do you find the audio events that are going on? You know, because then you can join in the audience, and if you want, you can go on stage and stuff. It's very Clubhousey. And I'm not sure where you go now to find those audio events. I will have a little play, but Georgina might be able to, maybe not right this second, but perhaps pop something in for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. There is so many new areas. So if you wanted to do this, I think that in itself is, I mean, it's something that I do is, you've got to understand that these platforms, like we've mentioned Clubhouse, you know, have these initial spikes, but there are certain ones that are going to stay around, and it's knowing what you feel comfortable with. And if it is audio, it may be LinkedIn if you've already got a presence there. Twitter has got their audio version of.
They're all doing all of those different mediums within their platforms, aren't they?
This is where you can again get overwhelmed. And I think it's kind of sort of saying, look, okay, I'm just going to do a session on what is out there. I'm not going to try and get a strategy, but I just want to kind of get what the landscape is out there. And things that we haven't talked about, which I know from a technologist sort of side, is we all use Alexa and Google, and that is an underrated platform that we could all go on, and there's a strategy on that. So if you
Alexa,
so you could have, as in for reorders and things like this on your shop. And again, that's one thing, but even from coaches, Alexa, how do I sell a service product? And it could come up with that answer, because it's like, oh, you might want to download Jules's podcast on
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
This is where it's all tied in.
Yeah.
Wow.
You
I
can't.
thought it was just Alexa, switch the lights on. I didn't know.
Always a lot more.
I won an Alexa and gave it away to my daughter because I really don't want it listening to me. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, Alison, it's so
Yeah.
true. You think we said again last week, we definitely said this, that suddenly we're served adverts for things we talked about in the car, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness,
I was
what's
going to
that?
say, if you don't think you're being listened to from
Oh yes.
phones
Yeah.
and
Mm.
Zoom and goodness knows whatever else, then
Oh yes, I know that. Yeah.
But
Mm.
but just wrapping this up, because look, we've got 5 minutes left, but how interesting that we've talked for all this time. Look, doesn't it go quick when you're chatting about these things and the different layers? I think the key points are: understand where you want to be and where you're comfortable to be. Equally understand maybe where your audience is going to hang out, because that's important too.
Yeah.
But I think it's about not getting overwhelmed by all of this, but knowing how you stay visible in your best way that you want to. And I think we need to take into account all of the evolution of these platforms. They're all doing audios now. They're all doing lives now. When you look at all of them, as far as I know, they pretty much all do these things. Think about the hybrid stuff that's coming back and how we use that, and how comfortable that might be for us, more so than anything. And equally, maybe have a month or two sending out postcards. Direct
I was
mail.
just thinking of that.
Yeah, direct
After
mail could be back.
After Christmas, I think I'll do some of that.
Yeah. And it's
So
exciting.
be warned, you folks.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm waiting for my postcard. I'll be watching the door. I'll get Dottie and
Christmas.
Yogi.
Too much to do before Christmas.
But I think there's so many things to think about. The big thing is don't get overwhelmed. But I think the big message for me in this session is don't think it's just about social media, because it really isn't. Thank the Lord, Sue. But it really isn't just about that, so really interesting points. Anyone else got anything they wanted to ask or add just in the last few minutes?
Just one very quick one. I mentioned Mighty Networks to Sharon Luca. We did a podcast yesterday, and I said that you were using it, and I know she was looking, so I told her to come and have a chat to you.
We've got a virtual cuppa booked in already.
Brilliant. There we go.
You see, Mrs. Connector over there.
I know.
But I already knew Sharon, obviously, but she did say to me, I'd love to know more about Mighty Networks and how it works for you. So I'm still finding out about it. But what's really nice is that's another platform that's evolving. They've got new exciting things coming out in December. So thank you, Alison, for that. That's brilliant. But has that been a useful session?
Food for thought. I've written down a whole list of things to go into my 2023 planning. Yeah,
and maybe we do another session at some point where we drill into those kind of options. Maybe Georgina, you run a session around the actual platform options, things to look at, new things on the block, something like that might be interesting.
Just if we're aware of them, Georgina, just even if we probably won't touch them, so that when somebody says something, you need to jump on this with it. Oh no, Georgina's already told me.
I know about that one.
So that would be really, really useful.
I think so. I'll try and find out how you search for the audio events on LinkedIn, Alison, because there will certainly be a few that might be interesting for you to just jump in and listen to. But and watch back the Clarice on YouTube.
Thank you.
Because that might be interesting for you. Anything else, guys?
I think a session on campaigns in general, it's that focus,
structuring them.
That's what you want out of it. How do you measure and because that's all part of this, as far as it's got to have an outcome that you can say that was a successful bit of investment of my time, energy, and obviously
I like that,
because otherwise it's just scattergun, isn't it?
Exactly that. No, I like the idea of doing that. I'll schedule something in for us to do that. That'll be cool. That we could do another Learning Live, but we could focus on that, how to create a campaign or how to measure a campaign. I'll have a think about that. That's a great suggestion. I'm always open to suggestions, guys, so please do let me know, because these
Thank you.
sessions are a great value for us. So
That's
Ooh.
thank you so much. I think it's a huddle. Is
I
it?
think it is.
It's a huddle. It is the academy. huddle.
It's a
Right, so-
huddle.
So we're not letting Catherine join in, are we?
I'll tell her you said that. This is recorded.
It's okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Lots of love,
thanks.
guys. Lovely to see you. Thank
Thank you so much,
Oh,
everybody.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.